Hi, I'm Louise Mitchell, 30 years old, single, and apparently the villain in my own family story. 2 weeks ago, I finally did what I'd been dreaming about since my early 20s. I bought my very own apartment. No mortgage, no roommates, no debt. Just mine. $300,000 of my own sweat and sanity that IT wasn't luck. I'd been saving for 8 years, working 60-hour weeks at my accounting firm while my friends were off on Bali beaches and luxury brunches. I packed lunches, skipped vacations, and lived in a shoebox studio so one day I could own something real. When my grandmother passed, she left me a modest inheritance that helped me reach that goal faster. And I made her proud. The place needed work, bad wallpaper, outdated kitchen, but I didn't mind. I loved it. It was mine. I was peeling off the last bit of floral wallpaper when my phone rang. "Louise, honey, you have to come over next Saturday," my mom said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Family gathering." "Family gathering?" I asked. "Since when do we do those?" "Oh, it's a surprise. Just be here by 4. And bring that chocolate cake from the bakery near your new place." Her tone told me exactly what I didn't want to hear. She was up to something. But fine. I figured I could survive one afternoon of family chaos. My sister Alice would be there, of course. She's 3 years younger, still renting downtown with her boyfriend, Kevin. Growing up, Alice was the golden child. Cheerleader, pretty, spontaneous. I was the practical one, the "you'll thank me later" type. Spoiler, no one thanked me later. So I painted walls, bought the cake, and tried to convince myself it'd be fine. But as I pulled into my parents' driveway that Saturday and saw all the cars lined up, uncles, aunts, cousins, I realized something. This wasn't a casual family dinner. This was an ambush. Asterisk the moment I stepped inside. My mom's face lit up with that brittle smile she uses when she's about to do something manipulative. "Louise is here," she called out. Just in time. I handed her the cake, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. The house was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my dad's grumpy brother, who usually skips family events unless there's free beer. Everyone was there. I spotted Alice on the couch, glowing with that smug smile I'd known since childhood. Kevin sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked. She giggled. "You'll see." We all sat down at the dining table. My mom's best china, the good silverware. That alone told me this wasn't just dinner. My cousin Eric leaned over and whispered, "Any idea what this is about?" "Not a clue," I muttered. Finally, after a long, tense meal full of fake small talk, my mom stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. "Everyone, I have some wonderful news to share." She beamed. "Our dear Alice is pregnant." The table erupted. Applause, cheers, the usual chorus of congratulations. I smiled politely, genuinely happy for her. "That's great news, Alice." But then Mom held up her hand. "That's not all." The room quieted again. "As you all know, Louise recently bought an apartment," she said, gesturing toward me. Heads turned. "And as you also know, she's single, no husband, no kids." My stomach dropped. "But Alice," Mom continued, "is starting a family. She and Kevin need a home of their own. And since Louise has a new apartment, I think it would be a beautiful gesture of sisterly love." She smiled directly at me. "For Louise to give her apartment to Alice and Kevin." The room fell silent. That I thought she was joking. But then I saw Dad nodding, Aunt Karen clapping her hands like it was a charity drive, and Alice looking at me with wide, expectant eyes that I felt the air leave my lungs. "You want me to give her my apartment?" Mom nodded, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. "Yes, honey. You can rent somewhere smaller. You don't need that much space." I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "You can't be serious." "Oh, Louise," she said, her voice sharp now. "Don't be selfish." And that's when everything went straight to hell. Asterisk the moment the word selfish left her mouth. Something in me cracked. I'd spent 8 years scraping every spare dollar together, skipping dinners out, patching clothes, saying no to life itself. And now my mother was calling me selfish because I wouldn't hand my apartment over like a party favor? "You're out of your mind," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I worked for that apartment. No one helped me." Alice's eyes filled with tears, instantly transforming her into the victim she'd always been. "I can't believe you'd do this to me," she whispered. "I'm pregnant, Louise." Kevin's face hardened. "You're seriously keeping that place all to yourself?" "Why shouldn't I?" I snapped. It's mine. The table erupted in whispers. Aunt Karen gasped. Family should come first. My dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Louise, don't embarrass us in front of everyone. I felt the blood rush to my face. Embarrass you? You're the ones ganging up on me in your own dining room. My mom's lips thinned. You've always been this way. Cold. Difficult. You never think about anyone but yourself. And then, before I could say another word, she grabbed the cake I'd brought, the one sitting perfectly in the middle of the table, and hurled it at me. The room went dead silent. The chocolate buttercream hit me square in the face, sliding down my hair, splattering across my blouse, dripping onto the floor. I stood there, stunned, frosting in my eyelashes. Alice gasped, but not in shock, more like satisfaction. My dad crossed his arms. No one said a word. Slowly, I wiped my face, smearing chocolate across my cheeks. Then I picked up my purse, slung it over my shoulder, and said in the calmest voice I could manage, "You know what? Keep your dinner." And I walked out, cake still dripping down my neck, as my mom screamed after me, "Ungrateful, miserable girl, you're dead to us." That night, I sat alone on my couch, staring at the stains on my shirt and wondering if that was the moment my family had finally shown me who they really were. I barely slept that night. My phone lit up nonstop. Messages, missed calls, voicemails. Every one of them the same chorus. Be reasonable. Your sister needs you. Stop being selfish. By morning, I turned the phone off completely. I sat there, replaying the scene in my head. The cake, the stairs, the silence. My parents had always favored Alice, but this was war. And then I remembered something. My grandmother's house, the very one my parents lived in, legally belonged to Alice and me. Grandma had left it to us both in her will. My parents were there only because we allowed it. I dug out the old folder marked Grandma's will, and there it was in black and white. 50% ownership each. I took a long breath, grabbed my laptop, and searched property lawyer near me. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Jeremy Blackwell, a calm, silver-haired man who listened as I poured out the whole story, the ambush, the cake, the Facebook post my mom made the next morning calling me cold-hearted and ungrateful. When I finished, Jeremy leaned back. So, to summarize, your parents live rent-free in a home you legally own half of, and now they've publicly shamed you because you wouldn't give away your own apartment? Exactly. He nodded slowly. Well, Louise, you're within your rights to file for a petition sale. That means we force the property to be sold, and you and your sister each get your fair share of the money. Your parents have no legal claim. I hesitated. Would that make me the bad guy? He smiled faintly. After everything they've done? No, it makes you the adult in the room. That night, I signed the paperwork. A week later, there was a knock on my door, loud, furious pounding. Through the peephole, I saw my parents, Alice, and Kevin. Louise. My mom shouted, "Open this door right now." I didn't move. I pressed record on my phone and let them rant. "You ungrateful brat." Mom screamed, "After everything we've done for you, you're throwing us out of our own home? You're leaving my pregnant sister homeless." Alice wailed. Pathetic. Kevin muttered. 15 minutes of shouting later, they left. I sent the recording to Jeremy that he called back an hour later. "Louise, that's harassment. If they try it again, we'll file for a restraining order." That's when I realized I wasn't the weak one anymore. I finally had leverage. The mediation was set for Monday morning at Jeremy's office. I arrived early, wearing my best navy pantsuit, the one I saved for big client meetings. I wasn't just their daughter anymore. I was a co-owner, a professional, and a woman who was done being bullied. Jeremy greeted me with a reassuring nod. "Remember," he said, "you're not doing anything wrong. You're enforcing your rights." A few minutes later, my family walked in, my parents, Alice, and Kevin, all tight-lipped and glaring. My mother's first words weren't a hello. They were, "I can't believe you're doing this to your own family." I stayed silent. The lawyers began the mediation, outlining the situation, the will, the ownership split, the history of harassment. My parents' lawyer tried to argue that forcing the sale would cause emotional hardship. Jeremy calmly slid the voice recordings and screenshots of the Facebook post across the table. "This," he said, "is the emotional hardship my client has endured." You could have heard a pin drop. After nearly 2 hours of tense back and forth, both sides stepped out to negotiate. When they came back, Jeremy leaned toward me. "They've agreed. The house will be sold, and you and your sister will each get half. My mom broke down instantly. Louise, please, she cried, her tone suddenly sweet again. Don't do this. Think about your parents. We raised you. I looked at her, at the same woman who'd thrown a cake in my face and called me selfish. You didn't raise me, I said quietly. You trained me to give until there was nothing left. My dad muttered something about me being cold as ice. Alice wiped her eyes dramatically. Kevin glared. But I didn't flinch. The house will be sold, I said flatly. That's final. 2 months later, it was. The market was hot, and the house sold fast. After all expenses, Alice and I each received about $175,000. Jeremy handed me the check with a satisfied smile. So, he asked, any plans for your share? I smiled back. Investments. Stocks, bonds, maybe a REIT. Something that appreciates, unlike my family. He chuckled softly. I think you're going to be just fine, Louise. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. 6 months later, my apartment didn't just look new, it felt new. Fresh paint, hardwood floors, a modern kitchen I'd installed myself. Every inch of it was mine, bought with hard work and defended with dignity. I hadn't spoken to my family since the mediation. No calls, no texts, just silence, blessed, peaceful silence. My friend Sarah from work called one evening. Hey, how are you holding up? She asked gently. I smiled, swirling my wine. Honestly, better than I've ever been. She hesitated. I heard Alice had the baby. She did. A boy. Do you want to see him? I stared out at the sunset from my balcony. No. He'll grow up hearing that his terrible aunt refused to help her poor pregnant sister. They'll leave out the part where my mom threw a cake in my face. Sarah sighed. Families are complicated. That's one word for it, I said with a small laugh. But you know what's funny? For years I thought family meant sacrifice. That being a good daughter meant saying yes, even when it hurt. I looked around my apartment, the soft light, the quiet hum of peace. Now I know better. Real family doesn't demand you destroy yourself to keep them comfortable. She was quiet for a moment. You sound free. I am. After we hung up, I walked to my bookshelf and pulled out a small photo box. Just me and my grandmother. She'd been the only one who saw me for who I was, not for what I could give. Thank you, Grandma. I whispered. Outside, the city glowed. Somewhere across town, my parents were living with Alice and Kevin in their new house, built on a mortgage and resentment. Maybe they thought they'd won. Maybe they still told people I was cruel, but I didn't care, because I'd finally learned that peace costs less than forgiveness, and it's worth every penny. And as I turned off the lights and walked through my apartment, the one everyone said I didn't deserve to keep, I smiled. For the first time in my life, I wasn't anyone's second choice. I was just free.